I'm sorry. Was I talking to myself all this time?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I started right on time. Let me start over. I'm so sorry. Let's go back to the introduction. I'm sorry, everybody. The old mute button, I have to unmute in both places. Okay, let's go back here. Sorry about that. Welcome. It's now 9:32. I started at 9:30, talking to myself apparently. I'd like to officially welcome you to the latest installment of the Active Transportation Resource Center On the Move webinar series. My name is Marianne Hernandez. I'm part of the Atrc Technical Assistance Team based in Sacramento at the California Department of Public Health, and I'll be facilitating our webinar today. Today's webinar is entitled Active Transportation Non-Infrastructure Related Funding Opportunities. As many of you know, the Active Transportation Program non-infrastructure grant applications are oversubscribed and very competitive. Today's webinar will give you other funding sources available, ideas for leveraging local existing funds, and other resources available through the Atrc to help you continue to promote safe walking and cycling in your community. But before we do that, we'd like to give you a poll question, and you should have it pop up on your screen. And if you would choose between, if you're a city, a county, a state, a tribal government, regional NPO, nonprofit, or another type of organization. We'll just give you a few seconds to click the appropriate button, and then we will we'll show you the results of the poll questions. Okay. It looks like, well, thanks all 36 of you who are on now. We have quite a few registered, so we'll have people joining us as we go along. Looks like we have the most people from, let me expand this a little bit here. There we go. We have the most people from the city organization, from the cities, and then we have folks from the state, and then from the county, nonprofits, and other. Great. Well, thanks so much for letting us know who's on the call, and we will go ahead and get started. As the slide indicates, we have muted the audio lines to help us eliminate background noise for our presenters. This also helps with the quality of our recording. That said, if you have any questions or comments throughout the webinar, we ask you to use the chat function. Please choose everyone. That way that you'll have several choices. You'll have host, panelists, attendees, but if you choose everyone, everybody in that group will be able to see your question and can answer it for you. Towards the end of our question and answer portion, there is also a raise hand option, and we'll show you that right before we get to that portion of our meeting. And also at the end of the meeting, we'll ask you to do a post-webinar survey, and that will also pop up as soon as you log off in the meeting. And just know that this recording and any resources are posted to the Atrc website, which is listed here at atpresources.org. Now I'd like to introduce who's speaking today. we have 4 illustrious speakers. From Caltrans, we'll hear from Priscilla Martinez Velez and Aaron Thompson from the Office of Regional and Community Planning. They'll be talking about the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grants. Timothy Weisberg, the Public Information Officer with the California Office of Traffic Safety, will be speaking on their grants, on the Office of Traffic Safety grants. Patrick Gilster, who is the Manager of Programming and Monitoring in San Mateo County Transportation Authority, will be talking about leveraging alternative funding. And finally, we'll have Summer Lopez, the Caltrans ATP ATRC project coordinator, talking about the ATRC resources available to you. As with all our webinars, we have learning objectives, and I've mentioned them a little bit today in our introduction, but we have 3 objectives. One, about learning about alternate funding programs for active transportation plans and pedestrian or bicycle safety programs. Learn how to leverage existing local funding sources and identify ATRC technical assistance resources available to you. Now I'd like to introduce our team, our ATRC team. From Caltrans, we have Emily Abrahams. She's the Senior Program Manager for ATP NI Plans and the ATRC, and Summer Lopez, who you'll hear from later, is also with Caltrans and ATP NI Plans. And then at the California Department of Public Health is my team. We're in the Injury and Violence Prevention branch at the California Department of Public Health, and our program name is Active Transportation Safety Program. My colleagues are Victoria Custodio and Judy Polikoff, who you'll hear from later when we get to the question and answer portion. So thank you all for being here, and especially Judy and Victoria for assisting me during this for this webinar. I'd like to now go to introduce our first couple of speakers. We have Erin Thompson. She is the Chief of the Office of Regional and Community Planning for the California Department of Transportation in the Headquarters Division of Transportation Planning. The Office of Community and Regional Planning provides guidance and oversight for planning funds that go towards multimodal, active transportation, and complete street studies for regional and local agencies, tribal governments, and transit operators. Priscilla Martinez Velez is responsible for managing and overseeing the Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program. In her 15-year career at Caltrans, she has contributed to regional transportation plans and guides and has worked to expand the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program. Aside from awarding the next round of grants, her biggest priority is drafting a program report to highlight the best practices and challenges of recently completed planning grants. Erin and Priscilla, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Marianne. This is Priscilla Martinez Velez, and today I'll be giving you a little presentation and overview on our grant program. And for the purpose of our presentation, we'll be focusing on sustainable communities. Next slide, please. So this is an annual program. We do an annual call for applications every year. And right now, we're actually in the middle of an application period. Applications are due next week. So we're getting ready for that. But again, like I said, every year we do this. We'll do another call next summer, probably late summer or early fall at the very latest. And so for sustainable communities, this pot of funding is mostly funded by Senate Bill 1. That's the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. And so the approximate budget for sustainable communities is $14 million. And these funds are available for regional or local governments, so the city and counties, Native American tribal governments, other public transportation planning entities, and then sub-applicants, we have a whole bunch of other agencies who can also apply in partnership with primary applicants like nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations, and educational institutions. The minimum request is $50,000. The maximum is $700,000. But the real purpose here is very much in line with active transportation. We are looking to fund efforts that are encouraging local and regional multimodal transportation and land use planning. So that's a very integrated planning, making sure that it's a planning effort that's comprehensive and capturing all different perspectives, and that it's furthering the region's regional transportation plan / sustainable community strategy. And those sustainable community strategies are required throughout the state of California in urbanized and metropolitan areas. And these planning efforts also should be contributing to our state's greenhouse gas reduction targets. And last but not least is to address the needs of disadvantaged communities. And it's a very important piece of our grant program. And we have a 50% goal to ensure that at least half of our grants are going to benefit disadvantaged communities. And actually, since we established this goal, we've been reaching and far surpassing that goal at about 80 to 90%. The grant program objectives that you see here, these are all based upon our Caltrans mission, our Caltrans strategic plan, our California Transportation Plan. Right now we're on the CTP 2050. And so these are all, and they're all vetted too. So the grant program does go through a formal update every other year. And when we do that, and that's a requirement from SB1, when we do that, we give everyone a chance to give us some input in terms of our objectives, the purpose and goal of the program. And so that's where you see here our engagement opportunities. The next time we'll be updating the grant application guide will be next spring. So around April, we'll be asking and seeking input from the public and our stakeholders to see, what can we do to make things better? Where can we improve? Where can we streamline? We're constantly working to make things better and better every year. We also encourage stakeholder collaboration as part of the grant application development process. So not just during the actual study or planning effort, but beforehand, so that it's more comprehensive and it's more vetted through the public and stakeholders who will be impacted by the plan or the study or the project eventually. Another very important part, so once our grants are awarded, and actually through the evaluation process, we're really looking to make sure that the community is part of the whole process. And so it is required for these sustainable communities competitive grants. And really, we're not looking for, checking the box type of community engagement. We're looking for those types of efforts that are above and beyond and very innovative in terms of reaching disadvantaged communities and making sure that they're part of the whole process. Our grant program also has these other program features at the end of every effort, and that's what Marianne was alluding to in my introduction about this grantee closeout survey and report. And so at the end of every effort, we survey all of our grant recipients to see what are the best practices, what were the challenges, and if they were successful in actually implementing any pieces of their plan. Then we'll be able to take all that good information and put it into a report that we can share with everyone, with the public, with any planning practitioners or potential applicants to give them that information to do good and do better in their planning efforts. We have final products listing, so anytime a plan or a study is completed, we add it to our listing so that we can share that with everyone and you can see the types of efforts that we're funding and have been completed. Another big thing our districts do, we have 12 districts at Caltrans, and every district provides one-on-one technical assistance to interested or potential applicants. The districts will have workshops. We also have a statewide workshop. So this year we had 12 workshops, and by the time we're all done, it'll actually be 13. And so these workshops are a good opportunity for applicants to get in touch with the district to propose their ideas and concepts. And then they also review draft applications. So that's really, really been useful. You can see in the quality of the applications that we receive every year that they're very competitive, and you can tell when they really seek out that district technical assistance. We have resources and tools, and we'll get to our website at the end of this presentation where you can find these things. But we have our grant application guide, and we also have handbooks. So once grants are awarded, we have a handbook to help our grant recipients successfully facilitate and complete their grant projects. And of course, we have a bunch of templates and other tools. But this is mainly it. Sustainable Communities Competitive is a very competitive program, not just because it's called that. We do tend to receive well over 100 applications every cycle. But those who are unsuccessful, we debrief them. We give them very specific feedback and comments and ways to improve their application for the next round, because yes, we always have a next round, fortunately. So that is it for this slide. If you can go ahead to the next one, please. And here is just to give you a breakdown in terms of our previous grant cycle that we announced last June. This here, it just kind of shows you we fund a lot of projects that are focusing on active transportation and things like safe routes to schools and an active transportation plan, sidewalk inventories, things like that, to help inform what kind of needs are out there that need to be funded. And also complete streets. So that's another area where we see a lot of active transportation components, because a complete street is addressing the needs of all the users of the facility, whether it's a person walking or biking or just scooting around, people driving, trucks, you name it. And then we have another area where it's very much, you see a lot of active transportation is multimodal. And so these are the pieces that I'll be focusing on today. Also general plan related types, those also tend to involve a lot of active transportation pieces. But we do have a really good spread in terms of the types of projects that we award from year to year. We don't use these project types to inform the evaluation process. It's just, really helpful to see what we are funding in the end. Next slide, please. So here is just to give you another, just a little tidbit of information in terms of the anticipated outcomes. Whether it's an active transportation plan or a complete streets plan, just really focusing on those project types where we see a lot of active transportation components. In the end, we will see ADA accessible sidewalks, multi-use paths, safe routes to schools. And in terms of complete streets, we've seen design guidelines, a lot of land use and transit integration, a lot of transit-oriented development planning too, and downtown revitalization. So that is in terms of outcomes. And then, of course, greenhouse gas and vehicle miles traveled reductions. We're really big, of course, on public involvement and being innovative on how we do that, because it can be tricky. The public can get a little bit exhausted from all of our requests, and so we have to be innovative in thinking about how to engage the public to make it meaningful. And of course, integrated planning. And we talked about housing, we talked about land use and integrating all that, but thinking more outside of the box and plugging in our partners maybe from public health. They have a lot of resources, a lot of information that can help us too in transportation planning. There's a lot of other good information in our grant application guide that can help to make our efforts more integrated as well. Next slide, please. Here's our website, and on the website, you'll find our grant application guide, the schedule for this grant cycle that we're right in the middle of, and then we're going to jump into the next cycle in the spring of 2022. The call for applications will be released sometime in the late summer, early fall at the very, very latest. We're going to try our hard to stick to that schedule and make our release in hopefully by September. The California Grants Portal is a really good place to go to sign up for state funding opportunities. And we are required by state law to update the California Grants Portal on the day that our funding opportunity or the call for applications is released. We're also required to include more data in that California Grants Portal in terms of the number of applications received versus awarded. And so hopefully that data will be used to inform anyone who's subscribing to the grants portal or anyone who's visiting to see exactly, what are our chances of getting funded. And, the more information you have, of course, the better to inform your decisions. Here's our information also. If you're wanting to send us an email, you can send it to regionalplanninggrants@dot.ca.gov. That is our shared inbox, and that's actually the inbox where we get all of our applications and things like that. A lot of requests go to that inbox. And I see any questions, or are we going to hold off until the end?
I think we'll go ahead and hold off. I did see one come through, so don't go anywhere. We'll hold off till the end, so that everybody has time to speak. Thanks so much, Priscilla. That is very valuable information. And us at CDPH have scored the grants, and yes, they're very good and they're exciting projects from many, many type of jurisdictions and organizations.
Hey, and this is Erin too. Well, Priscilla did an amazing job. Thank you. One thing I did want, I know. I did want to also say too, for those that are reoccurring applicants too, like we said, we offer a lot of technical assistance, and so debriefings are key and lessons learned. Also, just not even from the closeout surveys, but most of our applicants, when they reapply, are successful. And so this is something that we work with our districts, and then we also offer the technical assistance within headquarters as well. So there is a lot of resources available. And so please, like we said, contact the districts. They're the main point of contact, but Priscilla and I also do a lot of assistance as well.
Thanks, Erin. Now we'll hear from Tim Weisberg, who is the Acting Deputy Director of Marketing and Public Affairs for the Office of Traffic Safety, or OTS. At OTS, Tim develops and markets traffic safety initiatives and supports communications for the OTS-funded programs. Prior to being with OTS, Tim worked as a public information officer with Caltrans and as a local news reporter with ABC 10 in Sacramento and 9 News in Denver. Tim, go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. Well, welcome everyone. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our funding programs, specifically for bicycle and pedestrian safety grants that we offer. So next slide, please. So a little bit of background about the OTS. We are a department under the California State Transportation Agency, and we administer grant funding that's provided by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, to reduce serious injuries and fatalities on California roads. And this is done through behavioral traffic safety programs. Our approximate annual budget is around 90 to 95 million per federal fiscal year. So we do run on the federal fiscal year just to make it extra confusing for those that apply for state grants, but it's October 1st to September 30th. So the upcoming grant period will be for federal fiscal year 2023. And we provide more than 300 grants statewide. Next slide, please. So here's a little bit of our timeline in terms of our funding cycle. So we do a solicitation for applications in the first week of December. This is also when we will hold grant application workshops. In the past, it was done in person in different regions across the state, but we will still be doing it virtually this year, but we hope to hold multiple webinars. So feel free to reach out at the end. I'll provide my contact information if you want to be put on the list to let you know when those webinars will be available in December to kind of walk through additional details about the grants and how to apply. So the applications are due at the end of January, and then typically our application review is February to April. The grant award announcements are done in May, early part of June. And then after the grant announcements in terms of if you've been awarded or not, grant development begins through the summer, and then the grants are implemented in starting October 1st. Next slide, please. So we fund a variety of program areas. So alcohol impaired driving, distracted driving, drug impaired driving, emergency medical services, so helping fire departments purchase extrication equipment, or those commonly known as the jaws of life, motorcycle safety, so rider training courses, motorcycle safety enforcement, occupant protection, so think your car seat programs at public health departments and through CHP. Of course, bicycle and pedestrian safety, police traffic services, which is additional enforcement efforts, as well as traffic records improvement projects. Next slide, please. So who's eligible for funding? Any government entity, so it could be law enforcement, it could be county, state, and local government, public health departments, fire departments, judicial agencies, so think district attorney offices, courts, and nonprofits and community-based organizations, similar to other grant programs. We don't fund them directly, but they could be a sub-grantee or a subcontract with a host agency. So, for instance, we fund Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and they are a sub-grantee under the alcoholic beverage control, as an example. Next slide, please. So a few examples of our bicycle and pedestrian safety programs. Through UC Berkeley, we have a complete street safety assessment. And this is a way to recommend infrastructure improvements for more accessible and safe ways to bike and walk. And they solicit applications from cities and counties to do these assessments throughout the state, as well as community pedestrian and bicycle safety training programs. And this is really the community-oriented action plans that are developed to improve bicycle and walking safety. And really the focus is on disadvantaged communities where maybe there is a lot less crosswalks and sidewalks and things like that, a lot of unincorporated areas that maybe need some improvements, as well as community bike rides and bicycle training courses. So think your bike rodeos. This is all about improving riding skills and encouraging the use of safe routes to ride, as well as awareness and education campaigns that focus on biking and walking safety. Next slide, please. So other examples here is the SCAG Go Human campaign, and this is the campaign through Southern California Associated Governments. So they have a kit of parts to test temporary infrastructure improvement projects in communities. So think your parklets, high visibility crosswalks, separated bike lanes. They go out there and put in temporary improvements so the community has an idea of what these improvements look like. They also offer community streets mini grants programs. This last fiscal year, $275,000 for 31 community-driven active transportation projects in underserved communities. They also had a traffic safety peer exchange series where they talked about traffic safety issues and how to implement programs in the community. Next slide, please. Other example is through signal cabinet wrap messaging. So this is something that the City of Lancaster and City of Monterey did on their utility boxes. They encourage safe behaviors, walking and biking on these utility boxes with these wraps, and as well as promote active transportation as a healthy way to travel. Another thing they did was incorporate it into school education. So in Lancaster, they had a whole curriculum, and on the utility boxes, they also had a map in the nearby area in the city where there were crosswalks and bike lanes. Next slide, please. City of Long Beach did a campaign called Look Out for Us, and it was a series of social media messages that focused on bicycle and pedestrian safety, really around the drivers and how to interact with bicyclists and pedestrians safely. Next slide, please. And then in San Diego, the San Diego Police Department and San Diego County Health and Human Services had a sub-grantee with Circulate San Diego, and they had a crash not accident campaign where they put up signs in areas where a pedestrian was struck and killed, and basically the focus was to say that it was no accident, that it could have been preventable. Same thing with infrastructure. They had signs up that explained the different types of infrastructure intended to keep people safe. So whether it was the protected bike lanes or how a hawk signal worked, things like that, that improved safety, kind of explained the infrastructure. Next slide, please. So in terms of the application, the main thing we're looking for and what's really important to focus on is the problem identification. So the 5 W's. Who's involved? Is it young drivers? Is it DUIs in certain age groups? Is it older drivers? What types of crashes are happening? Where are they happening? And why? Is it the drivers behaving poorly? Is it the roadway design? Is it other contributors? This is really important when developing your grant applications and making them successful, is having a clear problem and how you're going to target the problem specific to your community to help reduce injuries and deaths on the road. And you want to use local data or your most recent SWTRS data to really justify that. Next slide, please. All right, so how to apply? Again, the new application period is every December. So for federal fiscal year 2023, we're coming up on that. And that's what this new application period would be. So the grants would start next October and go to September 30th, 2023. And again, the applications will close on January 30th, 2022. You can apply online. The link is right there. New accounts are added to our own electronic management system. And during our grant application workshops, we also walk through how this system works, so people have a good sense of how to put in information and how to use it. So if you've never used it before, we really help you walk through that. Next slide, please. So that's me. This is my contact information, both the PIO at ots.ca.gov and my personal email. Either one works. The PIO one is a shared inbox that we look at regularly. And then follow us on social media so you could see some of our grant programs. And again, if you are interested in being on our list for application outreach for those webinars that we plan on holding, let me know and we can make sure that you guys get that information so you're able to sign up if you're interested in applying. With that, I'll send it back to you guys.
Thanks so much, Tim. Lots of good information, lots of great examples of how we can promote biking and walking and safety. Thanks so much. Our next speaker is Patrick Gilster, and he, as we mentioned before, he's the manager of programming and monitoring for the San Mateo County Transportation Authority. He manages multiple transportation sales taxes and helps local San Mateo County jurisdictions better leverage their funding. Prior to joining the Transportation Authority, Patrick spent the last decade as a consultant working on active transportation throughout California while with Tool Design Group and Fair and Peers. Patrick, go ahead.
Great, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Go to the next slide. So I'll be covering today leveraging alternative funding sources. So you've heard a lot today about kind of some state level programs, but what I'm here to highlight is some opportunities more at the countywide or regional level. So while my agency may be only focused on San Mateo County, there are a whole host of similar agencies all across the state that might apply to many of you. So I will cover what those are and then give you a brief overview of what our funding process looks like and talk about some of the different ways to think about as you're preparing bike and ped plans or other community plans, different ways to leverage your projects from the non-infrastructure stage to the potential infrastructure stage and alternative things that you might be able to get funded using your resources. If we go to the next slide. Just a quick introduction, the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, SMCTA, we manage 2 voter-approved half-cent transportation sales taxes, each that generate approximately $90 million per year. I won't go into every category on the screen, but we have Measure A and Measure W that provide highways, local streets and roads, grade separations, transit, bike and ped, and even in TDM category as well that we're excited about. Go to the next slide. Just a quick overview of kind of the amount of funds we give out kind of at the countywide level. We've invested $29.5 million in 62 infrastructure bike and ped projects since 2010 through Measure A and Measure W. And additionally, we supported 22 Safe Routes to School special projects that were funded over the last 2 fiscal years that Measure W has allowed us to do. So that's anything from crossing guards to educational programs at schools to murals about safety and travel and bike and ped paths on school sites, things like that, that we're excited to keep that funding going. Next slide. So SMCTA is one of 25 local county transportation agencies with voter-approved sales taxes, also known as self-help counties. I put the website at the bottom of this in case you're interested in understanding if you fall in one of the self-help counties. One of the big things that our types of agencies do, especially when it comes to bike and pedestrian projects, is really leverage our local and county funds by investing in the early stages of project development. So the planning, the environmental, and some of the early concept to final design to help our local jurisdictions really compete for that state or other federal funding for implementation. So this also helps for non-infrastructure about helping to scope projects and doing feasibility studies and things like that. These counties also receive CTC local partnership program formula distribution funds, and we're also eligible for a competitive local partnership program pot of money as well. So talk to those agencies. Those are more for the infrastructure side, but can also be used at the earlier stages for projects that may become infrastructure. Next slide. So a little bit about our funding process and some of our peer agencies. Many of us use either a competitive program similar to the grant programs from the state level, or have direct distribution formulas that provide bicycle and pedestrian or local streets and roads funding that can be used to support bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and non-infrastructure projects. SMCTA, we use a competitive program when it comes to our program itself. And our application process is somewhat modeled after the Caltrans ATP program to really help align what our local jurisdictions are putting together so they don't have to recreate the wheel for our application versus the state application. So lots of similar information and overlap there. And then our bike and ped program actually includes a set aside specifically for planning and promotional projects and a separate set aside for Safe Routes to School projects, like I mentioned at the beginning. Next slide. Sales tax agencies in our funding processes often have minimum matching funds that can range anywhere from 5 to 25% of the total project cost to really show that measure funds are really using to supplement local funds and not supplant them. It's a sales tax agency thing. For competitive programs, projects and programs are scored using evaluation criteria that's often set up beforehand and have an award evaluation committee that helps score those, similar to the state level programs. Projects and programs are often required to be in adopted planning studies for consideration as well. So showing where that support comes from, and that can often even be for some of our Safe Routes to School programs and our planning promotion categories, from anything from a feasibility study or a walking audit, or any other local document that you might have to support requests for funding. Next slide. So some example eligible pedestrian bicycle category non-infrastructure projects that we fund in our planning and promotions category for you all to chat with your agencies about, if applicable. We can help provide funding for bicycle and pedestrian master plans, corridor plans, concept studies, and technical studies. So those things that really help move projects forward and help you address those questions that you might not have been able to before. Safe routes to school plans and walking audit, Vision Zero plans, targeted outreach campaigns. We just funded a Vision Zero outreach project in Daly City that we're excited to see get kicked off, all about implementing their Vision Zero plan that they did in partnership with the Federal Highway Administration. And then other ways that you can think of using these funds to augment outreach and CDO partnership funding that you can pair with other projects as well. In a big thing, crossing guards, we know it's hard to get funded through a lot of other programs, so that's something at the TA that we look to help support our local jurisdictions with. Next slide. As I mentioned too, we also have a specific transportation demand management category. So for non-infrastructure projects that are bike and walk supportive, that can help support things like bicycle and e-bike purchase subsidies, commute planning assistance, wayfinding, mobility hub planning and design, bike parking, bike repair stations, all of those types of things that we're excited about to have a new plan for that we're adopting at the end of this year to help distribute the funds for those. Next slide. So one of the things I wanted to touch on that I've learned over the years is kind of when you're doing non-infrastructure projects or you're at the early stages of bicycle and pedestrian plans or other corridor and community plans, is really kind of assessing the grant readiness of specific projects versus community priorities. So oftentimes we do prioritization processes as part of those plans, and we have historically done them to develop the community priorities as what's done to score the projects as part of those. But that doesn't always tell you which projects will score well in competitive grant programs. So often what I encourage folks to do is, in addition to weighing projects by community priority, is also to conduct potentially a separate side analysis of which projects might score well for certain grant opportunities. So for our San Mateo County San Mateo County jurisdictions, I often work with them to talk about ways in which we can use like the TA's evaluation criteria to then weight and score their projects to see which projects they have might actually compete best for our funding, which a part of that is using the community support as well. And then creating an implementation plan section that helps piece together competitive projects, community priority projects, and other opportunity projects. Next slide. So what do you do if you have outstanding implementation questions that weren't addressed in the bicycle and pedestrian plan? That was one thing that the city of San Pablo came up against. I love this example. It's just about bundling specific feasibility questions together to address multiple corridors at the same time. So in the earlier stages, ways to assess different project trade-offs and do more community engagement to local residents and businesses that maybe weren't as involved at the citywide level for a bike and pedestrian plan, but maybe now might see different ways in which projects might be able to affect them. Next slide. And then what do you do if you have limited funding or don't know where to start when you're doing a bike and ped plan? Is really creating a near-term implementation action plan and really trying to set a 5 or 10-year outlook to help you create some realistic goals. So that is anything from considering projects that can move forward quickly using rapid implementation designs, or using a constrained funding scenario. So looking at annual assumptions for local spending and potential awards that you might get from grant opportunities to develop a more constrained network that you can focus on. So many of the jurisdictions I've worked with over the past 10 years have had limited staff capabilities and capacity. We all know timing is constrained and we all wear lots of hats. This example is from the Solano County-wide Active Transportation Plan, and as part of that, so we developed full proposed networks, but then did a more constrained outlook of how you created a connected network and opportunities. Next slide. And then what do you do if your jurisdiction doesn't have the needed staffing levels or resources to apply for and implement projects? So this is both infrastructure and non-infrastructure. So consider a dedicated bicycle pedestrian coordinator, even if it's part-time. Have regular check-ins with self-help tax agency staff and your MPOs to discuss different funding opportunities and get on any listservs that might be available, and partner with your cities if you're not a city local or local jurisdiction to check in with them on what's coming up. And then agencies like mine at the TA, we also provide technical assistance. We can help with funding for small pots of funding that we have at our discretion for grant applications or staff augmentation to help deliver projects and things along those lines. Next slide. And then some other innovative things that you might consider when you're looking to fund projects, public-private partnerships. Private companies are often excited to help provide matching funds or provide branded giveaways and things like that for some of your outreach activities. And then at the TA, we also give additional points in our call for projects for most of our programs. If there's any indication that you worked with private sector to help with your projects. Nonprofits are a great resource. There are different foundations like the Knight Foundation or Bloomberg Philanthropies that assist with projects. So keep a lookout for those. Smaller nonprofits are also great in helping to provide volunteers and event spaces and matching funds, things like that. Definitely keep in mind your local bike and pedestrian coalitions. They are our greatest advocates and often help with engagement and can help with grant applications, things like that. And then really considering too that as part of the ATP program, there is a non-infrastructure component that can be paired with larger infrastructure projects. So really related around education and safety and promotion of those types of things. So definitely keep that in mind as you see your local jurisdictions applying for just the infrastructure funding too, that there's potentially a way to make those even better projects. Next slide. And then that's it for me. And that's my contact information up on the screen. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Patrick. Thanks for all those details and lessons learned, et cetera. It just applies to all grant writing, whether working with a TMA or not. Excellent, excellent resources and tips. Thanks so much for that. Our next speaker, our final speaker, will be Summer Lopez from Caltrans Local Assistance Office. Summer is the project coordinator and associate transportation planner at Caltrans headquarters. She works in the Active Transportation Program and with the Active Transportation Resource Center, managing technical assistance contracts and works specifically with non-infrastructure and planned project types in the ATP. Summer, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Marianne. Wow, so many great presentations today. Thank you, everyone, for being online today to listen in, and to everyone that's presented today. Thank you so much. So before I get started, I'd like to first just ask that if you have not signed up for our ATRC listserv, to please sign up for it, and also please share it with others as well. Because this is the best way to get information from the ATRC and to also be notified of all the upcoming opportunities that I'm about to present, and also just to get any active transportation program updates. So thank you, Marianne. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so the first opportunity is an evaluation and technical assistance program. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The overall objective of this program is to assist local agencies, particularly disadvantaged communities, in gathering before and after project data for ATP reporting and other project evaluation purposes. Again, for those who may not know, ATP is Active Transportation Program. This program aims to develop program and project evaluation methodologies and work with individual agencies to collect data, provide ATP reporting support, and create evaluation graphics to display the outcomes. This will launch in the coming months and will be announced on our ATRC listserv. If your agency is implementing an ATP project now and needs this type of evaluation assistance, please reach out to us as we are currently preparing a list of agencies that are in need. Additionally, if you've not checked out our project profiles yet, you can find them on our website. And if your agency is close to finishing a project now and would like to have it featured as a project profile, please reach out to us and we can get the process started to feature your project in our project profiles. Next slide, please. The next program I'd like to share that is also launching in the coming months is our Kit of Parts pilot program. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The goal of this program is to expand the Southern California Association of Governments Go Human Kit of Parts program to statewide usage. You heard about this a little earlier with Tim's presentation. So we just plan to expand this program through SCAG. So through this program, we'll select 3 agencies in Northern California, Central and Southern California outside of SCAG's region to borrow these kits for demonstration projects and other pop-up events. We hope to use this as an opportunity for ATP application community engagement, and we will announce the launch of this program on our listserv once it is ready. Again, if this sounds like something that you are interested in, please reach out to us and we will have our recommendation list prepared for our consultants once this program launches. Next slide, please. The last program I'd like to share with you all is our ATP Cycle 6 Disadvantaged Communities Technical Assistance Program. Call this the DAC-TA program. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The goal of this program is to provide technical assistance to 10 or more disadvantaged communities throughout the state through the ATP Cycle 6 submittal process. Some examples of technical assistance that will be provided is application preparation, site visits, workshops, trainings, and so much more. You can also find some information about our current program that we just are wrapping up now for Cycle 5 on our website if you want some more information about that. And also you can access prior trainings through our website. You can find those on our website. So what you can expect in the coming months for this DAC-TA Cycle 6 program is a simple recipient application that will only take a few minutes to fill out, and we will use that to gauge your agency's need for this type of technical assistance. We'll be announcing this on our listserv when it comes out, and that's the recipient application, so please make sure you're signed up. Additionally, you can also reach out to me if you feel that your agency needs this type of technical assistance, or if you just have a recommendation for an agency that you know needs this type of assistance. We're happy to receive those recommendations as well. Next slide. This is the ATP Cycle 6 timeline. Right now, the California Transportation Commission, also known as the CTC, is developing their guidelines for ATP Cycle 6. Application preparation should start around the winter of this year and carry into January, February of next year. And then spring of next year is when the call for projects typically, spring is generally when it launches, and so it should happen as well next spring of 2022. And the applications will be due sometime in the summer of next year. Next slide, please. I have a few other resources that I'd like to share with you today. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So our ATRC technical assistance team, they're all on the call today. They are now providing on-call non-infrastructure technical assistance by Caltrans district. So we have Judy Polikoff covering districts 1, 2, 3, and 4. Marianne Hernandez is covering 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10. And Victoria Custodio is covering Caltrans districts 7, 11, and 12. If you are in need of non-infrastructure specific technical assistance or just have some questions, they can either connect you with the appropriate person, or they can also assist you themselves. And you can contact them at atsp@cdph.ca.gov, or you can also find this information on our website. Next slide, please. So the ATRC also has an automated counter loan program that allows agencies to borrow counting equipment for free. If you are in need of counters, you can contact the ATRC and start filling out the interest form today. You can find this interest form on our website, and we can also share all of these resources after today's webinar is over. Next slide, please. Finally, I'd like to note our ATRC training schedule. This lists out all types of informational training sessions that we offer. You can register for these on our website. Many of the trainings that are listed here have already passed, but there will be a brand new set of trainings next year. And so just watch out for that. It'll come out on the ATRC listserv. Additionally, we have some trainings that you can take at your own pace, including a bicycle transportation intro to planning and design. And you can find that as well as several other trainings on our website. And we also post all of our previous on the move webinars and teleconferences, just like this webinar today will be posted after today's webinar ends, and you can find all the previous ones as well. There's just a wealth of information there if you're interested in kind of browsing that. And again, if you need any assistance or just have any questions on how to browse through our website, or if there's anything that you are looking for in particular but are having trouble finding, just reach out to any of us, myself, or our ATRC CDPH team, and we'll be happy to help connect you to those resources. And that's all that I have today. I think the next slide has our contact information, and you can reach out to Emily or myself if you need any non-infrastructure related assistance, or if you need, you can also reach out to the ATRC team that I mentioned earlier. And that's all that I have.
Thanks so much, Summer. And we'll post the links and everything. As Summer mentioned, you'll get a link to this webinar, as well as all the links that have come up during this webinar. You'll get that after the webinar is over within the next 4 days or so. Thanks so much, Summer. There's lots going on with active transportation. It's very exciting. So thanks so much, Summer. We appreciate it. So now we're heading into the question and answer portion of our meeting. And I saw a couple of questions come through through everyone. So thank you again, typing it in chat and send it to everyone. So so the questions don't repeat. Everybody knows the question's already been asked. And then if you'd like to speak your question, if you'd like to talk to us verbally, you can choose the raise hand function, and I'll show you where it is in the next slide. And if we don't get to your question today, know if you type it in the chat, we'll get back to you individually. So if you look to the bottom of your screen, there should be a little hand, and if you click it, it comes up next to your name, and we'll know to unmute you. And at this time, I think I will, let's see what's here. Oh, okay. Yeah, to get us started in our question and answer portion, and then we'll address your questions that you've already typed in. Type it in chat. Let us know what is the biggest non-infrastructure challenge you are facing. For example, funding, personnel, community buy-in, COVID-19 school restrictions. We definitely heard about, we're here because of funding, but personnel and community buy-in. So let us know what your challenges are, type that in chat and send it to everyone. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Victoria and Judy and to ask the questions that are coming in aloud and have our presenters answer the questions. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Victoria Custodio with CDPH and the ATRC Non-Infrastructure Technical Assistance Team. I'm going to read the questions in the order that they came in. And our first question was actually during Priscilla's presentation, and it came in from Colin Bogart, who asks, what exactly does it mean that nonprofits are eligible as sub-applicants? Does that mean the prime applicant can write in the sub?
Hello, this is Priscilla. I can respond to that question. So yes, that's essentially what it means. So nonprofits, community-based organizations, as well as, other public entities like even universities, community colleges, they can be part of the application as a sub-applicant, in addition to that primary applicant who's like a regional agency, transit agency, city, county, or tribal government.
Great, thank you, Priscilla. And I'd love to have Timothy also weigh in on that question because I think it's related.
Yes.
You might have actually covered it, but if you could just repeat what you had shared earlier.
Yes. So so you do need to go through a local agency. I see the question coming in about community groups for the OTS grants as your sponsor agency. You do have to go through a procurement process, whatever that process is with the local agency. But in the application, they could state that the intention is to bring on a local organization, and that's how you do it as a subcontract with the local agency.
Great, thank you. All right. So the next question is just a clarifying question. This is from Andrew Layton. I keep hearing non-infrastructure. Does the complete streets portion of this grant, and I'm guessing he means all of the grants that were introduced today, does any of it include infrastructure improvements? So Marianne, I was thinking maybe you could just give a frame, just the framework for that, and then Priscilla and Timothy and Patrick can all speak to the specifics of their programs, or local, in Patrick's case, the local side of things.
Our hope was to promote the funding agencies we have on today, funding plans or non-infrastructure type activities. So that's the main piece. But as Patrick mentioned, it could be part of a combo plan. So you could have a non-infrastructure combined with an infrastructure program. So in working with your local agency, that can be. But I think our speakers could probably answer that better.
Yeah, that's correct. Patrick, I can jump in too. I think when you do the ATP applications, there's instances where you can do construction projects for infrastructure and have a non-infrastructure component related with it as well, whether that's for safe routes to school of the new infrastructure program or other things and the other activities to promote it in the area as well.
Yeah, and this is Erin from CalTrans, the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grants. Ours are 100% planning. It doesn't go into anything infrastructure. But what we are doing, which Priscilla touched upon, is like the closeout surveys to say like how can these studies or plans actually leverage or be more competitive to move into the next phase. Sometimes we have grantees come in like for multiple phases within the planning realm, but we also want to make sure like, okay, how do we make sure like if they then like did an ATP plan through our planning grant program, if they apply for the ATP program, how do we ensure that they're successful? Because you just don't want a plan to sit on the shelf. I'm sure you guys have all heard that saying a million times. So that's where the closeout surveys and the best practices that we're doing with that reporting is like, okay, what are lessons learned? What funding sources are available also to move into like that next phase where it would be more like it's infrastructure, or if it's PNED, or the different phases, if it's a PID. So that's where we just want to make sure like our programs connect in a better way. So it ends up being something that comes to fruition. So that is what we've been working on. And so hopefully, like where we see, like when people are applying for different programs, whether it's through like SGC, OPR, CDPH, HCD, now with HCD having SB2 funding, there's a lot of different opportunities that weren't there before. So that's where we're trying to like make sure that those connections are made for it actually coming to like hitting the ground and running.
Great. Thank you so much, Erin, for jumping in. That was very comprehensive response. And I will add, as part of the active transportation team, we're always kind of looking to showcase resources that are available and out there. We did not, I think in the interest of time, really invite the climate investments programs and the other SB1 programs to present today, but those also have lots of opportunities to support active transportation work that's happening at the local level, the regional level, et cetera. So as we look towards 2022, we might be able to have a webinar on those funding options as well, which definitely make the connection between non-infrastructure and complete streets. So, and infrastructure improvements. All right, so we have a question about data from Stephen Svet. Do we have before and after data about the conversion rate auto reduction for safe routes to school? I'll just put that out there for anyone who wants to chime in.
This is Patrick. I can maybe answer this from the more local level. Many county safe routes to school programs do different tallies themselves, and so they often have some data. So I know the San Mateo County Office of Education does that for us here in San Mateo County, and there's similar agencies to ours that lead larger safe routes to school programs that also do that as well. So those would be the resources I would think to reach out to for some of that.
Great, thank you, Stephen.
And then this is Marianne. I want to chime in because I did just speak with San Luis Obispo County yesterday in an outreach call, and Pete Williamson was developing some such data tool to be more user-friendly, so I can certainly connect you with him. He might be able to give you the details of how they're doing it in San Luis Obispo County.
And then I'll just put in a plug for the evaluation technical assistance that Caltrans and the Active Transportation Resource Center are putting out. I think with added technical assistance for program evaluation, it's really going to be help to answer, the big questions that are put in by the legislature. How is this program working, but on the whole, but also, we'll have more detail. Very likely we'll have more detail about specific things like safe routes to school within California as well. So great question to always ask about data. All right, and then I believe Tim answered the other question that Stephen had posed as part of his response. And then just a lot of comments regarding challenges for non-infrastructure, some chiming in with personnel. Nonprofits have different challenges related to funding and connections with public agencies. Of course, the community buy-in, which you guys had covered in your presentations, funding. And then also materials, printing, and meeting the needs of bilingual populations. So I think that's it right now for questions that have come in. Marianne, so I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for inputting answering that question about challenges. It's very helpful to see. I saw some new that I hadn't seen before, so it's always good that to let us know. And we did have a question just come in. let's see. Sorry, I can read it.
Yeah, and Marianne, I'll apologize if the question was sent to anyone except for everyone, I won't be able to read it. So.
Oh, I see. Yes, I have it here. Sorry, I pulled it up. The question is, can we apply the funding for ADA self-evaluation and transition plans? And I'm not sure. Can we apply the funding for ADA self-evaluation and transition plans? And can we apply that to what? I'm not quite sure what the question is. If you can unmute yourself or raise your hand, we can unmute you, and then we can. So Alejandra.
Oh, hi, this is Alex Warner, and then I wanted to find out if we can use that funding to do the self-evaluation and transition plan study for the cities. It's just evaluation. Then the transition plan is a plan and where those improvements are going to be done. And a lot of the barriers are found in underserved communities because they are the older communities.
And this is applying for which grant?
I don't know because I'm not familiar with all the grants.
I see.
Hello, this is Priscilla Martinez Velez from Caltrans, and I think I can respond to that.
Thank you.
For the Sustainable Communities grants, that is something that would be an eligible project type, like an ADA transition plan. We've seen that before. And I can definitely see like an evaluation being part of that whole process to get everyone's input from the community, especially if it's an underserved community.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
Marianne, we have one more question that's coming in, and this one is for Tim. So it's the complete streets safety assessments. Stephen is asking, can community groups apply and conduct assessments, or does the city have to do the application? Could you
Okay,
speak to that?
I see. Yes, great question. So yes, the city does have to, but you can work directly with them. They do work with community groups to focus on specific areas, and I provided the links there with more information about applying. And I think this is a great way, back to Aaron's point, to, if we can't fund infrastructure to develop these action plans that could be submitted to cities and counties to point directions on where funding could be used. And as part of this grant we have with SafeTrek, UC Berkeley, they do the post results evaluations to see, we submitted this plan, it didn't sit on a shelf, we were able to add crosswalks here or a bike lane here. So we do the surveys afterwards, and we feel a good amount end up getting things built in the areas of concern. So obviously we can't fund it directly, but these reports are intended to convince cities and counties to prioritize funding there so that infrastructure improvements can be made.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move on. I have a few announcements. And if you think of a question, go ahead and type it in the chat. And as I said earlier, we can answer it later individually after we log off today. We have a big announcement today for our big meeting coming up, our our symposium. Sorry, just one second. Sorry about that. It is next week. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8:30 to 12:30. And we would hope that you join us. And we just put in the link to be able to register for the symposium. It's a 3-day free virtual event hosted by the Atrc, one of our many events. The goals of the symposium are to bring together active transportation stakeholders, share information on relevant active transportation topics, and provide attendees with implementable solutions. You can go to our website to register. We strongly encourage you to attend. There's some fabulous speakers and plenaries speakers for each day, and then we'll also have breakout sessions. So on the last day in the morning, which we'll be facilitating. So we really, really hope you register and join us. As of today, we have 586 people registered. So please join us. It's going to be a lot of really good information with very good speakers. We also have next month we have another on the move teleconference, Synergy 2021. This teleconference is on November 16th, and it's going to be a virtual networking conference where you're just going to hear very short I do a question and answer type format, and then with photos, and then we'll break out into breakout rooms by geographic area or type of program you have. So it's going to be a very interactive session, and that's on November 16th. So look, as Summer mentioned, look to the Atrc. If you're on the listserv, you'll get an announcement about the webinar and where to register. It should come out by the end of this week. So please join us next month. Summer already let you know of our districts. Here we are, and here are our email addresses. So please contact us at any time for technical assistance needs, even if it's administrative in type. I can also forward it on to our Caltrans folks. The Caltrans also has an inbox that you can email directly, atp-ni@dot.ca.gov. But please reach out to us. That's what we're here for. As soon as you log off, this will pop up on your computer. So please, please, please fill out the survey. This just is an evaluation survey, and I promise it won't take more than 3 minutes to complete. So press continue when you see this. It's not spam. And finally, I want to give a shout out to my colleagues at CDPH, Victoria and Judy. Thanks so much for your help. I couldn't have done it without them. Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for joining us on the call today. We'll be following up in the coming days with a link of the recording and links to the resources discussed today. But again, feel free to reach out to us or the presenters with any other questions that you have. On that note, we'll be signing off, and thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.